Boca Raton. I saw a Craigslist ad for a 1972 Sarah Brown Continental, original owner. So I think I want to go get it. Let's go ahead and take a road trip. Should be there in a few minutes, going to Boca Raton. So about 40 minutes from where I'm at. So go ahead and go grab that bike. Saw the bike on Craigslist. And again, I love buying local because it saves shipping. So this will be a good way to pick up the bike, basically at value. It's priced fairly, and it appears to be a pretty clean bike, so looking forward to picking it up. Coming home from Boca Raton. Just picked up the, I believe it's going to be a 1971 Continental. After getting a closer look at it, it has all the characteristics of a 1971, including the Schwinn badge right at the middle of the seat post, and then the rat trap pedals with no reflectors. So we'll confirm the serial number when I get home, but we got it. Original owner, early 70s Continental, Sierra Brown. It's really sweet. I can't wait to get to it and clean it up. So we'll get home shortly, and we'll get a better look at it. All right, so we're here, we're back home in Plantation. Alright, so we'll just make a turn here and head home. Make sure you look both ways. And here we are. So we're back at the shop. So again, I'm looking forward to getting this bike out and giving it some TLC. And the bike was well maintained for years. Original owner took care of all the maintenance issues. It just needs to be polished, you know, paint waxed. I'm gonna put the original bar tape back on it and get all the chrome looking good. Looks like all the cables are in good shape, so I'm gonna keep all original outer cables. The inner cables, obviously, are probably gonna change depending on what kind of shape they're in, but more than likely they'll need it. So, all right, so we're here. Let's go ahead and back this bad boy in, and we'll go ahead and get that Continental out and take a look at it a little bit closer. Alright guys, check it out. We're here. Let's go ahead and get it out. And there she is. So this big truck had plenty of room to put this in here. I even took my car cover to cushion it up, but it didn't need it. So he just took off the front wheel and put it in there. So let's go ahead and get the front rim. And again, this all cleans up pretty easily. The hub looks good. Here's some typical rust we see in these S6 rims. And what I actually do before I do anything to it, I take a brand new razor blade and actually scrape off most of that area there, because that's like a scab. It'll just chip right off. And then I'll take a little bit of a steel wool and start rubbing on it. But check to see how these look. You know, if your rims look like this, you will see the results you can get here when I get done with it. But these are classic S6 rims. This is typical of how they get. So I should be able to clean this off pretty good. So here it is. I will verify the serial number here in a second. But some of the things that told me this is a 71 is that badge being in that position. My 71 Varsity has it in the same place, and then any 72 that I have has it up here. In 1970, they still had the full wrap that was placed right about there, so I think Schwinn continued to place them there because these decals are beautifully aged, but in good condition. They're complete. A little bit of part missing right there on the end, but that's to be expected. The paint overall is in good condition, and this will really wax almost to a new shine. Some of these little scratches will diminish as you polish them. All this chrome and alloy is going to clean beautifully, so take a close look because it won't look like that next time you see it. Got the dual position levers, dual stick shifts, Dia-Comp center pull brakes, two-wheeler forks, and the high flange hubs that will definitely clean up nicely. Now the bolts on these brakes, I'm going to try to take that off. In some cases there's chrome loss, so I might have to replace those, but I do have some bolts I bought for that reason. Pretty sure it's 71. So we'll take a look at the serial number here, and we'll go identify it for sure. But I'm into keeping the original outer cables nowadays. Now the red reliefs on these brakes is strange. Usually they have gold like the dot. So I'm gonna see how they came, because that's a little different than I've seen. Again, I bought it from the original owner, real nice guy. Gave me a little history on it, and he actually bought it with this on there, which I thought was strange. You know, the dealer put it there, and as you guys all know, you Schwinners, that these go on the back of the rear brake off to the side. So I'll get that on there. It's starting to rain, but that embossed logo is really cool. So this is a really sweet saddle. So take a ride on it, and it actually rode pretty good. Besides, you know, it's a little stiff from the bearings not being lubed or serviced in a while, but I'll get that. So it looks like it's gonna start to rain, so much. We took a good look at it outside, evaluated the condition. So now we're gonna go ahead and work on it. And one of the things I usually do, I try to put a budget on how much it's gonna cost me to restore a bike. And I get a lot of questions about how much it costs to restore a bike. So it really depends on how much you want to put into it. You could just take this exact bike and you just clean it up as is and take it to the bike shop if you don't know how to do it. They have the hubs redone, as well as the bottom bracket, headset. So that's pretty much it. You know, so cables, bearings, and of course truing the wheels. In some cases, you know, you'll find that the rims spin pretty true, and the bike will run just like new again. And then you can just clean it as is without taking it apart and making it look really good with some chrome polish and, you know, a little wax on the paint. You can also redo the tape if you wanted to, or leave it as is. So it's up to what you want to do with your bike. You know, if you want to just ride it and beat it up, I would just leave it as is and just put it together, you know, put new tires on it if needed. This bike right here actually has good thread on it. So if I wanted to, I could just leave this bike as is, clean it up, and make it just a cool rider. But I want to go ahead and give it a little bit more attention. So here's what I'm going to do to it, and this will give you an idea how much you could spend on parts. So let's take a look right here. So again, these are things that aren't needed, but I want to do it. I want to put the gum walls, which was what this bike came with when originally sold, on the dealer sales floor. Those are about $17 each. Then I got the new tubes, about $12 each. And then the cables here, I'm going to leave the outer cables. I'm just going to use the inner cable part of this. So I always use, again, the inner cable to make sure they're good. So those are about 12 bucks each. These can go anywhere from, you know, $20 to $30. This one I believe I got for like 20 bucks, but this is that translucent Sarah Brown tape that's going to look great on there. I was able to find a second roll after I got one on my Varsity. Inner wire, I would say about $10 each. And then these are sold in sets of 4. I got actually a set of 10 for a good price, but usually you spend about $10 on a set of 4. You know, so with shipping about 15 bucks. And then some additional stuff, you know, these are pretty inexpensive, your bearings. If you have the bike shop do it, that comes with the job. But I got all the bearings I need for it. Chainstay Protectors. This is actually a reproduction right there. See how neat that looks? These are some other original ones. The one on this bike is definitely toast. I'm gonna try to clean it, see what it looks like, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty cooked. But we'll see. You could also get bolts if you wanted to for these. See these bolts right here? This is a brand new old stock that I found. Super cool. But see those bolts, how clean they are? And a lot of times this will get pretty toast like that. And that's why you can buy these. Come in sets of 4. And they can make that brake look brand new again. There's some that I replaced before. Then you'll need a little bit of grease, some chain oil, and your grand total about 140 bucks plus elbow grease and your time, of course. So you can invest that into it and make it into a really nice bike, or you can just clean this up and still have a really nice bike and be a functional rider that you can enjoy just the same. So hope that helps. So it turns out it's a February of 1972. So that explains why it has some of the same things that you saw in 71s, because Schwinn was notorious for doing that. They would carry stuff over from one year to another. And as you can see, this is where the decal is. And here's my 1971, exact same spot. And this is how they did it in 1970. And that was the last year they put the full wrap. See, that is the Schwinn quality decal. So as you can see, that's where it used to go. And I believe that's why they put these decals there on these bikes. See, there's a 72. This one here is 73, up a little higher. And so is that one, another 73. Another thing also that made me think it was 71 is that it had a different derailleur on the front. See, this is one that I saw in several 72s. I think this is a GT250, because those for sure are. See how they have a solid top on them? And right here, this is so you can adjust that little screw, that little slot. So they kind of change the adjustment on it. But that's what I expect to see on a 72. So when I saw this GT150, I wasn't sure why that had that on there. These are made in Japan. I believe these are Shimano, the Dia-Comp. These are also made in Japan, where typically they'll have these on it. These are the Schwinn approved wind-on brakes, which are made in Switzerland. This one's made in France. So they were a little bit nicer parts, a little bit better workmanship. Based on this, how the bike came, I want to leave it on there. And the other thing that I confirmed as well was this. When I first saw this, I thought it was odd that it had a gold dot with a red lever. And I saw other images of 1972 Continentals with that exact same combination. So I'm gonna leave it like that. So we'll go ahead and get started. And what I'm gonna do, because I know I'm gonna take the bar completely apart, I'm gonna put it down on the floor so I can actually have some leverage to remove the handlebar. Because those things on bikes of this age are lightly seized and they're pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take it down and take that bar off. So we'll go ahead and get that. I like to take the brake pads off and then press it together, so this will basically bring this up. Then I can just take that off. Then I can go ahead and take the brake cable right off here. I already did the front one. So that way when I take out the handlebar, you know, it won't be connected. Sometimes, you know, that's the last thing that you take off and it gets in your way. So there's that cable. And then same thing over here. These come out pretty quick, so, and there they are. So once those are out, then your handlebars are free. But you'll notice it'll come up, and usually if you undo it, see if it moves. I'm gonna try to do this with one hand and hold the phone in the other, but I was able to move it. See that? That's why you want to keep the wheel on so you can hold on to it like that. But that's already turning, so that's a good sign. That means it's gonna come up. However, this thing is in really deep, so I'm gonna have to use both hands to pull it out. I might have to put some WD-40 or penetrating oil to get that out, but it should come out. It's moving pretty good. All right, it's almost out. So tell you what, that was tough. Like, it was all the way to that seam right there, and usually you put it a little bit further up. I'll show you what this one looks like. Exact same stem, and see how that one's sitting. So that was in all the way, and they look better when they stick it out a little bit because it makes it a little taller. So the only thing I undid was this. I didn't touch the lock nut, which again has no bearing at all on what that stem does there. So I'm going to continue to twist that out of there, just about out. So next I'm going to take this off, as well as this one here. And then I'll cut the cables here and remove those inner cables, as well as the outer cables, and then remove all the other stuff that goes with it. Brake calipers are off, front and back. So here's the calipers, and make sure that when you take this apart, put them back exactly how they came out, so that way you'll know where all the washers and nuts go. That way you won't forget. And then we'll go through and take these apart and get them cleaned. Those springs should be able to clean up. Sometimes that rust will be on that steel pretty good. And there's the handlebar, so you can see how that mechanism works. It goes up there and expands that split into the steer tube and tightens it up. That's why when you have your bolt up like that and you can't get it out, don't keep turning it, because all you're gonna do is take it out of that completely. So while it's in that position, that's when you want to go ahead and grab a mallet, something that you don't damage the bolt, and then just tap it pretty firmly in most cases, and what it does, it pushes that down and releases that pressure, and then you can continue to. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and take the wheels off. So I usually start out with the front. And chains, I usually don't break unless I want to paint the bike or do some major repair. And in this case, this chain looks pretty good. I'm going to clean it up on the bike. They say that if you don't have to break the chain, don't do it. So I'm going to leave it as is, and then you just clean it up. Of course, I'll take the derailleurs off, front and back, and then take the saddle off, as well as the clamp, to get everything clean. And then I'll go ahead and do the headset removal, as well as the dual stick shifters and all the cables, and then the crank. So let's get started. Alright, so I was having a hard time taking the back wheel off, and reason being, the derailleurs usually swing back and forth. This thing is just like, see, there's no movement. So I think either this is too tight. It shouldn't be like that. This should just be like back and forth. We'll just cut these cables off. Get them right off of there. Yeah, so this is probably too tight right here. Supposed to be some movement on the hanger, so this can shift. You just take off one of these pulleys here. You just loosen this, and then it'll come right out. Because there's like a little sleeve that the pulley spins on. That back in there, and then we'll take this apart and clean it up. So we'll go ahead and loosen this right here. That shouldn't be as tight as it is. See that little notch right there, the little tab? That's supposed to be like a stopper for it. It's not moving from there. Put a little bit of WD-40 on the back of it, so I wouldn't turn it first. See, there's a little bit of rust there. So that's a good way to get that loosened up. Right, loosen that wire there for the front derailleur. Alright, next we'll go ahead and take off the fork. So we'll undo the headset and check this out. See how it stops? Like, it doesn't have a natural motion, so it's like it locks up every turn. So that would be hard to steer. I mean, those would be good to drive with no hands right there, because it's locked up right there going forward. All right, so next is the headset. Get the fork out. This one's going to be counterclockwise to loosen. I loosened it a second ago. I had to fight it, but if you see, this comes off counterclockwise. All right. So now you can go ahead and slide off the shifters here. This almost serves as a washer, and it does have a key. See that little slot right there? That's where that goes, so you'll center it perfectly every time. And this will clean up nicely as well. So these will come apart in a million different pieces, but that's the best way to clean them. And then is your cable hanger. Also has a little key slot on it. All right, and it just comes right out like that. All right, so there's that slot, and this is your bearing cup. So we'll go ahead and remove that as well. And this should be really hand tightened. And man, it was on there tight. So as soon as you start unloosening this, the fork's gonna start dropping. And I've seen some of these bikes with loose bearings, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure this has the cage bearings, which is pretty traditional. But just in case, we're gonna keep an eye out. So it looks like the threading was damaged, so it was really hard to get it past that, but now I got it through, and that should come out. And again, hold on to the fork because that's gonna drop down. All right, and there's your cage bearings. And then you slides right out. And then your bearings are in the cup right here, and they're stuck in there pretty good. But this looks pretty clean, no grease on it at all. So as you can see, there is why it was getting caught up on every revolution. So those are the things that again will make your bike ride like new once you get it redone. This will shine up nicely. So let's go ahead and put this fork down. I'm gonna grab those bearings out of that cup there. Oh, there they are. So that's the bottom ones. So there's your cage bearings, your headset, and these are your braces right here. The last thing is the saddle. Loosen that up and this should come right out. See where it's already sliding down, so good thing this wasn't a big hassle. It came right out. Alright, so there's your saddle. It's got the spring, the old school ones. Got the Schwinn embossed logo on it. Alright, then we'll go ahead and take this off now. And so we don't scratch the paint underneath there. I like to square a little bit of this so it actually glides out of there a little easier. And then this comes out. This is your hanger for the back cable, and that you can just kind of, all right, and out it came with no damage to the paint. So this will clean up nicely as well. So we took everything off. There's a few things I leave on unless I'm going to paint the bike or unless the parts are damaged. So I'll leave the bearing cups intact. There's really no need to take them out unless again they're damaged, rusted, or you're gonna paint the bike, as well as that one. So I just let them sit in there, as well as the bearing cups on the bottom bracket. Here's what they look like now. So one thing I do take a look at is if they're damaged, scarred up, or rusted. So right there, that doesn't look like it's in too good a shape. So I did a test on this side, just on the very bottom of it, and see how I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit, and I don't see any damage on there. So I'm going to continue to clean it and see how it looks. I do have additional ones, but I did notice when I switched them out before, the original ones seemed to have a little bit heavier gauge to them than the ones I was going to put in. So I try to leave originals if I can, if they're not damaged. So I'm going to do that. I also don't take out the kickstand unless I'm going to paint the bike, or if it's rusted, damaged, or needs to be replaced. This one's in good shape. There's no real need to take it out besides cleaning around it. And, you know, it's working fine. You know, it's a spring with some grease in there, so there's not a lot of wear and tear that happens there. So, you know, you can take it out. There's a special tool to do it. You can also just use the back of a crescent wrench put the handle in there and then pry it. That's how I did it before to take one of my other kickstands off, but there's no real need to take that off, so, as well as the chain. So I'm gonna leave all that on there because I can clean it on there and then not worry about having to do it again, but everything else did come off. And then I'll go through and completely clean this. This is pretty good shape. Usually these things have paint that's fallen off, these little crevices. So that looks pretty good. So very happy about that. So this will clean up nicely. Here's the only part I'm concerned about right there. Hopefully there's no paint damage there. It looks more like dirt and crud, but we'll see how that cleans up. So here's the bike in pieces. As you can see, there's the rims. We'll go through and clean off all the rust off of them. Replace the tires, true them, and do the hubs. There's the saddle, pedals, one-piece crank. I was concerned about that right there, but that should come off. So we'll take a look at that. I want to replace all the bearings. So your headset pieces, the brakes, I'll take them apart and clean them up as well. And then there's the derailleurs. I went ahead and fixed this. See, this is the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to have a natural back and forth like that. So they had this piece right there really tight, and that's the front derailleur, and then there's your dual stick shifters and all other clamps and hangers, and of course the fork. So that should clean up pretty good. And your handlebar. And then here's all the cables. So these are all the pieces. They're, pre-cut to perfect fit. I used to replace these all the time because I have the actual exact cable that looks just like that. So I could replace all these if I wanted to, but recently I actually like the look of the original cables after cleaning them, and then I'll just replace the inner cable because that did get, pretty rusted from time. And then I'll clean these brake levers as well, get rid of that cork tape and put the original tape back on it and shine up that alloy. So, but there's your bike in pieces. All right, so I went through and waxed the paint, and man, it looks nice. Went ahead and took off the badge, and they had a little ding in it, so I tried to straighten it out a little bit and clean it up. I do have some other vintage looking ones that are really in good shape, but I'll probably leave the original one on there, put it on here in a second. But check out how it shined up. So clean up well. And again, I use the rodent compound and polishing compound, and it really shines up nicely and takes off all the debris that was built up over years. And then I also went ahead and put the new Chainstay Protector. Big improvement over the original one that basically was just gone. So that's opaque and faded out, and basically they're just plastic. And that reproduction looks like $8.99. And I got a bunch of them a while back. They still sell them. I think they went up like $1. But they definitely protect the frame and make it look really pristine as well. So anyway, I was showing you this earlier, how this looks. And I'm pretty sure I want to keep them on there. I went ahead and cleaned the other one a little bit further so you can see how it looks. So you can tell they're definitely worth keeping. It's in good shape. There's no scars or anything on it, and it'll definitely be good to go. And then clean that up there as well. So that looks good. So yeah, this paint I knew was going to be good underneath all that dirt. So that's stage one, get the frame cleaned up, and then we'll go ahead and begin the component cleaning. That's going to be a little bit more time consuming, so I'll do that tomorrow. And then we'll do all the bearings and all that other stuff. So, all right, Saturday morning. There's a hurricane warning out there for South Florida, mainly the coastal areas, but something to worry about. But anyway, got the badge back on it. The little ding came up a little better because it was dented, so I kind of was able to push it out. But I wanted to keep the original badge because it's got, really nice shade of off-white on it now. And kickstand cleaned up really nice. Check that out. So I used just a little bit of that rust remover just to get some of that grime off. Left it only for like 10 minutes and then you wiped it down and then polished it. It came out really sweet. So those are looking really good. So here's what I do with the chain. I go ahead and put something underneath it to raise it a little bit, and then I dip it in there, let it soak, and I take this brush. You can see how clean that chain already is. And this chain is definitely in great condition. There's no rust on it at all. Usually these chains get rusty and you have to scrape that off. But this looks really good. So I'm gonna let it soak for a little bit, and then keep brushing off the grime, and then let it drip dry. And then I'll go ahead and put some chain oil on it. Both sides came out really sweet on that. And I do see a little bit of surface rust on that bottom bracket casing, which is a shame because this is my favorite part of the bike. I don't know why. But it looks like that's where water splatters, when you're riding it. And if you don't wipe it off and let it sit there for a few days, it'll eventually turn into rust. And I could, try to sand it down and fix it, but I think it'll just look more noticeable than what that looks like. And I did put a little bit of coat of evaporust on it just to get the initial rust off of it. So that right there, what you're seeing now, is just the corrosion of the metal and paint, and then some primer. So I'm just gonna leave it like that, because if I start playing with it, it's just gonna turn into a bigger job. Next thing I know, I'll be painting the whole bike. Decals again cleaned up nicely as well. When I did the bike, I just did like a soapy paper towel to clean up all the initial dirt, and then waxed it, and it comes out really nice. You can see these finishes are really good that Schwinn put on these bikes. I'm gonna go ahead and do this next. Get that cleaned off, and then put the bottom bracket back on, and then I'll go ahead and do the fork. So I'll do the headset and get that put back together, and then we'll start playing with all those small pieces. Then the final thing I do is the wheel hubs. Trim the rims, put the tires on it, shine all that chrome, and should be good to go. And then you gotta do the pedals as well. So the first thing I do is put a little bit of WD-40 on here, so it makes it easier to take these off, because these again get wet and could be rusty and basically stuck in there pretty good. And the one thing I don't like doing is stripping any of the bolts. I like them to look crisp like they are right now. So it's been sitting there for a little bit, so we'll see if we can go ahead and get them off. All right, so I thought I was recording and I was taping while I'm taking this off. So actually it's pretty straightforward. I just took off the 5 bolts, put them inside my evaporust to get the rust off of them. Then I just inspected this, and it looks like it's that's like dirt right there, so that should come right off. So we'll clean these up. Then my biggest concern was that this rust right here should come off, but we'll see. And then I was looking at all these pieces are dated, stamped, and they're right there. Check it out, 1971. So Schwinn did that a lot. They would use parts from the previous year on the next year model. So the 72 had a 71 crank set, and that's typical. But that should clean up nicely. This right here looks to be pretty straight. Usually these get kind of bent up. Looks a little bent, but I can straighten it out. Usually you can tell by just putting it on a flat surface. And actually it's not bad. But yeah, I've had bikes delivered, and when they take off the front wheel, the bike sits on this, so it bends this. And I've actually straightened them out pretty good. So we'll go ahead and clean this up and get that on the bike. All right, so I put a little bit of paint thinner in here. That's the same thing that I'm using with the chain. Seems to really dissolve the grease really nice. And then I'm just taking these chain rings and getting this initial grime off of it. Then I'll wipe it down and use the chrome polisher on it. The semi-chrome stuff works awesome on this. All right, so we just get this grime off, and then we'll wipe it down. So that should do it. All right, let's wipe her down. So some of this rust that I was showing you guys earlier, it comes off actually with just a razor blade. It's like a scab on here. You see, it just comes right off. And then you can get, you know, underneath it to see what started it. But see, it just comes right off like if it was just a scab. So that's first thing you really should do when you're trying to take rust off your chrome. Use a razor blade, and it'll scrape that stuff right off. Make sure you don't use it in a way that you scratch the chrome. But yes, again, do it in a, see how it just takes it right off? So it's coming off magically. And then I'll do the steel wool. And then once it's off, I'll go ahead and do the chrome or the rust remover to actually get to the source of the chrome or the rust. So now I'll just take a little steel wool like this. I'll go ahead and use a little bit of this paint thinner as well, just to give it, and look at that, let me right off. So I haven't used any rust remover yet on it. This is just taking it off the chrome. And see, that was my biggest concern, is now no more. So cool. Get the other side. And good to go. All right, so that arm is good. This actually was the better of the two. And this one, again, there's a little bit of rust there. That's gone. A little bit right there. 86. So came right off with a steel wool. So that looks pretty good. Alrighty, so that one's done. Now let's see what this one's got going on here. This one here, same thing. And again, you want to use a really fine steel wool so you don't scratch the chrome. And then if you get to one where the chrome's gone, not much you can do there besides just trying to get that rust off of it, and then, you know, hoping that that chrome won't, that corrosion won't look too bad. All right, let's clean it up. All right, and it's rain starting to come in for the hurricane. Still no major wind. I heard it earlier. Let's see what's going around back. So it looks like it's a light rain, or pretty steady rain, I should say. And those skies are gonna open up here pretty soon with tons of wind. So it's about 2 o'clock Eastern time. And we shouldn't see too much besides a little wind and tons of rain. The coastal area is gonna get a little bit more of the impact of the hurricane, so it should just go right by us and up north. It's a pretty hot day out there, still 77 in here, and it's really humid out there with all that rain, but definitely staying a little cooler than when it's not on. So here's these. I went ahead and put a coat of this stuff, the gel from Rust-Oleum. Since there's not too much rust, I just put a coat of it just to kind of, you know, any surface rust that I can't see, it'll just get rid of it, and then I'll polish it out. Same with this. So that came out really sweet, but I put some on the arms there where you can still see some of that, but that'll get rid of any of those, of that rust that might reappear. Then I got all the nuts and bolts in there. So that'll get rid of any rust in the threading. I already cleaned them up, degreased them, so that's just a precaution to make sure that all right, so they're pretty much done. I'm still gonna go ahead and use some of this semi-chrome polish on it with this wiping cloth. I get these at Home Depot. You get a bag of them for like 10 bucks, lasts forever. After a half hour, I use Evaporust instead of water to wipe off that gel. And then to get the Evaporust off, I use this, and then that makes them look like this, and you know, so that'll be cool. And then I'll put it together. And I've mounted this before by itself, which makes it easier, but it's just better to put the whole thing together and slap it on there. That way you don't have to worry about trying to put it on there while it's on the bike. So I'm gonna do it like that. I've done that more and more, seems like, and it seems to work out better. All right, so I got that one done. Came out really good. Look at that thing. The rust definitely came off of it. So here's this paste. See, it's like a pasty stuff. I just put it on and then rub it all over the piece. This stuff works awesome on alloy as well. Chrome's pretty much already shiny. I just like to basically polish it so there's no fingerprints or any smudges. And then these towels, like I said earlier, are awesome for this. So, best way to get the shine though is get really fast friction on there. Now we're gonna go ahead and get the shine. So usually you gotta do a really quick motion to see that shine. This stuff's amazing. And when you put these together, it'll look really good. I could use a buffer, but I'd rather just do it by hand. It seems like it gets a nice look. And the buffer, you know, doesn't really do much more on the chrome because the chrome's already shiny, you know. So if I'm doing alloy, sometimes I do use the buffer because it really gets it super shiny. But this will work right here, and it's a lot less noise and hassle. So yeah, if you never tried the semi-chrome, you're gonna love it. And the tube will go a long way. You just need a little bit. All right, then I'll do some final touches once I put it all together. And next is this piece here. We'll get this one done. All right, and then once it's completely clean, we'll go ahead and put it together. And it's pretty basic. So this goes on first. Making sure the holes fit. And then this part goes next. And if you notice, a lot of the stuff that you clean won't even be seen. So once you put it together, you can go back over and detail it to the parts that are actually visible to, you know, every angle. So I'll go ahead and get those bolts out of the evapor rust, wipe them down, and then put it together and then give it one final wipe down of all the parts that are actually exposed. All right, and then I like to put the bolts in by hand. And once I get them all, you know, as far as I can go with it, then I go ahead and tighten them in the same manner that you would do a car tire or car wheel. You know, I get it until it stops. Go over here, do the next one. You just cross, so that way they'll tighten evenly. And then once you get to a certain point, then you can go ahead and start tightening them a little bit more, because these do have to be somewhat tight, but just tighten up where you don't strip out that bolt. Because again, make sure that that stays nice and crisp, because that's, you know, like one of the centerpieces of the bike. And when it's nice and shiny, you want to make sure that those bolts look good. All right, that's pretty good right there. All right. And I can go ahead and give it one final wipe down with a fresh towel. This one right here still has some of the, so I'll use this one first because it still has a little bit of that residue from the polish, which is probably good. That way it'll, and then I go ahead and clean it one more time really good. Now that I know what's going to be exposed, I do a lot of this too underneath, especially through here. I forgot to mention that the smaller chain ring, you can take it off. And again, I only take it off if I want to replace it, or if it's, you know, if I want to replace the arms. Other than that, it's good to go the way it is. All right, and now on the other side, same thing. Again, you get to see exactly what's going to be showing on the bike. All right, looking good. And we're good to go. So we're ready to put it on the bike now. All right, there's the bearings. That's actually a new set. There's all the other pieces cleaned up really nice. So it's ready. And this old Schwinn chrome always cleans up nice. So even if it looks like it's rusted and dirty, you'll be surprised how well it will clean up. So we're gonna pack the bearings and get it on. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and put this in. I already pre-greased and put the bearings in there. And if you notice, there's two sides. So the side with the bearings at the top goes like this in here. So that means that this one, it goes flush against the back of the crank. More grease around here. Make sure we're plenty. Take this out of here and pack it a little bit. Alright, get some grease in there. So we'll go ahead and just maneuver this in here. It's pretty simple. Just goes in there. And then once you're against there, you go ahead and put your bearing and put that in there. So you're good to go. And then you're going to need your cone. And this goes counterclockwise to tighten. And sometimes it's hard to get it in there initially, but that actually went right in there. And the trick to this thing right here is to make sure that you are make it tight enough so there's no play, but not too tight where it's binding the bearings. And that's what was going on this thing. When I took it apart, it was just like really tight, and just loosening it made it feel better. And then you use your spanner tool to go ahead and take it all the way to the bottom there. There you go. And then you use this tool here to get it to a certain point there. And again, no play, and it's got to spin nicely. So that's not bad right there. Pretty good start. It's not binding at all. So that's how it should spin. Next is your key washer, and slot goes right into that place right there. And then your lock nut. And once again, it tightens counterclockwise. So, all right, so that's on there. Now we need to get it tight, and need to keep that same type of spinning motion. So you want it tight, but you don't want it so tight that it binds. So it's not bad. Definitely no play at all. So I think it's binding a little bit, so I always like to back it off a little bit. Again, clockwise, it loosens it. So I back it off a little bit, and then I also back off the cone of hair. And still no play. Opens up a little bit more. That's really good right there. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten it there. Any play that you feel will be tightened when you go ahead and tighten the lock nut. So that should do it. All right. That should be tight enough. And spinning great. All right, perfect. So I went ahead and polished the back of that again because all that grease got kind of messy back there. So now we're good to go. Let's turn the bike over and we'll go ahead and do the head side as well. Got all that finger smudges and grease out of the way, and that came out really, really good. So very happy that that chrome didn't have to be replaced. All original. It looks as good as that one. So awesome. Alrighty. All right, well, we'll call it a night. Got a lot done. So here's the fork. Didn't have a lot of rust, but definitely looks better. So we'll get the headset in tomorrow. There's the little chrome molding that goes there. The bottom race, bottom bearings, top bearings, and that's your lock nut and your cone. Dual stick shifters cleaned up beautifully. Hanger looks good. And then here's the rest of the small parts. Got it all done. Look at that derailleur, came out really sweet. There's that front one. You know, the little chrome parts that goes with it. And then the rest of the accessories. So that's pretty much it. So now he's got the brake calipers to go, and the rims, and then other miscellaneous small stuff. Oh yeah, the saddle and the handlebar. Sunday should be a pretty good day. We should be able to get most of it done. All right, Sunday noon. And look, the storm is just off the coast. Right about now, it's sitting in front of Broward County on its way north, but it was pretty quiet yesterday, most of the day. So you can see the winds pulling slightly, so not much. But we're supposed to get some rain and winds here, so I'll come back out here if that happens. But in the meantime, definitely not going to be doing any bike shoots out here today. Alright guys, well, I'll keep you posted on the storm. Alright, so we'll go ahead and install the fork into the headset. I already did the chrome molding and put the race in there and tapped it so it's even. So first thing I do is pack this with grease. This is the bottom bearing. If you notice, the bearing side goes up because it's going to meet the bearing cup right there. So you would have that full of grease and put it in there. Then the top bearings also does the same thing. This goes facing down. So the bearings are facing up because they're going to meet the bearing cup. So you can kind of see how that spins nicely. If you were to do it backwards, it would be a little rough and it would scar up that race. So again, those would be fully greased. And then you would go ahead and put your fork in there. And you just work it through the steer tube right there like that. And it goes all the way to the top, and this is already meeting there. You go ahead and put your bearing cup. And all that grease that would be in there would definitely be, you know, making it feel really good. And that's pretty much it. See, right now there's a lot of play, so you would bring it a little further. And then you'd have nice motion. This is without any grease, so, but that's how it should work. And then the next thing you would put on there, this acts like a key washer. It's got a slot on it, and you turn around and see the slot will center this perfectly every time. So think of that as your key washer. On top of that goes your dual stick shifters, and then finally your lock nut. And that's all clockwise threaded. So, and that's it. So that's a dry run. Sometimes if you do this before you install it, you'll get familiar with how you're going to do it, because once your hands are full of grease and you're dealing with it, it's you know, more of a challenge. So that's how you do that, and then of course your brakes go in there. All right, so I went ahead and got the grease in there now, and again, make sure there's no play. So just make sure this is not moving back and forth, but it's moving nicely. So this is nice right here. Before, remember, it was kind of clicking and it's getting stuck. So you just double check just a little bit of play, but actually that'll take care of it once you put the lock. There you go, perfect. Again, just by hand how you do that. All right, cool. So then we'll go ahead and do this piece, as mentioned before. And again, there's a key slot there, so you'll be able to put those in place every time. And then you go ahead and put your lock nut. All right, so just like the crank set, I was able to tighten this. And the first time I did it, it made it so it was binding a little bit. So I backed off that cone, and now it's tight. Feels pretty good. So I went ahead and put the seat clamp on. I did put some lube, or some grease I should say, on the tube as well as the clamp, and then you slid it on there. And we're gonna put this on next. This is your hanger for the rear brakes. Kind of line it up just right to get that bolt in there. Now if you notice, there's a little slot that the bolt has one as well, so that'll fit in there so it'll keep it from turning. So that way when you put your washer and your bolt, you can basically do it without worrying about it spinning on you. All right, we'll go ahead and do the saddle. Restored it real nice. All the rails cleaned up nicely. And again, that saddle was really in good shape all along, so we'll get that on there. So after you clean it, then you get it dirty again. And we'll go ahead and put a little bit of grease right here, so that way it won't seize on you in the future. Just a little dab in there. And then you can adjust it to where you like. Right, that's where I'm going to tighten it right there. And then once you get it where you want it, you want to make sure that you hold on to this, because this thing will move on you as you tighten. So I use this hand to hold it where I want it to be, and then just make the final adjustments on it. This one you definitely want to make tight though, so this one move around on you. Alright, well the pedals are done, and I went ahead and overhauled them. They're spinning great. They're spinning pretty good to begin with, but I went ahead and just put some fresh grease in there, and I just took that cap off, took the spindle out, put some bearing grease in it, and we were good to go. So very nice. They really cleaned up beautifully, as you can see. So again, these are the early add-on 440 pedals before they put the reflectors on them, and they're very nice. So I'll go ahead and put them on the bike. Next is the brake levers, and I'm going to go ahead and take this apart so I can get in there in all the crevices and make sure everything's clean. I also lube the little sleeves, so these just come right out like this. I had pre-loosened them already, so I'm going to go ahead and take them apart all the way. All right, so there's all the parts. So just make sure that you keep track of how these go. But this way you can clean everything, really well. Get inside the back there where you really can never reach these. And turns out these bolts are actually pretty good, so I'm going to keep the original bolts on there. I was looking at them a little closer and I polished them a little bit, and they're going to be okay, so I'll be able to save the ones that I have for another project. So every little piece definitely easy to get to and clean up. So now we'll go ahead and put it back together, and we'll make that one look the same. And it is kind of hard to put those back together. Those springs are loaded back here like this, so you have to use pliers to get them over that peg right there, and it does take some strength. And once you get it on there, you got to push it down, make sure it doesn't pop back out. So taking them apart is optional. If you just want to clean around that, you can, but you really can't beat what happens when you take them apart, because you can clean really thoroughly through everything, especially because you can lube the pivots. But I'm gonna go ahead and do that one next. And finally, the brakes are done. Got both of them ready to install. Those cleaned up really nice. All right, well, we got the brakes on, front and back, come out good. And I went ahead and got the pedals on as well. And then I went and got the derailleur on. So I went ahead and got the chain hooked up. And to put this back on, basically you take off the second pulley and then bring this around here. And then when you bring the pulley on, then you put it like that. Also fix the tension on this thing. Now it's able to move back and forth. But it's pretty much ready to go. Here's the rear. Came out nice as well. And then got your attachment. So there's the saddle. All the hardware cleaned up nicely. So this bike's ready to go. I'm getting to tighten this one here. And I left it like that so I could, mention that when you tighten these, they always go the same way that you pedal. So that's a good way to think about it. All right, which is coming along great. Got everything on it so far. So I went ahead and put the reflector back on. Full reflectors definitely will shine up nicely. But that's how the bracket was done on these. Goes on the back of that brake, and then it's got like a little L shape. And then you can move this angle. You can do it to run like that, or you can run it more parallel depending on, you know, how the light hits it and the person behind you. So we're good to go. You just gotta do the rims and the handlebar, and then all the cables. All right, next thing is the handlebar. So I'll do this tonight, and then tomorrow I'll do the wheels, because that's a big project, getting those wheels done. So let's go ahead and get this knocked out. First thing we'll do is we'll take this cork tape off, and then we'll remove the levers, and then we'll start cleaning it up. Well, that came off pretty easy. That was cool. So some of these can get stuck on there where you have to use heat guns or paint thinner, but that just came right off, so I'll do the other one next. All right, much better. So to get the sticky stuff off of it, this stuff's new, something I'm trying. It actually works pretty good. It's got a citrusy kind of smell to it, and seems to be pretty effective with the. So these are the really nice handlebars that they put on the Continentals. You also saw these on the Latour, as well as the Super Sport, Sports Tour. Quite a few of them. And check it out, this is right here, it says British made. So made in England, and they're very lightweight. So I was able to get all the scars off of this thing. Remember how when I pulled it out? All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with some of my semi-chrome. All right, there she is. Looks like chrome. I did go ahead and use the very, very fine 0000 steel wool, and I forgot about that. I actually do that as the final finishing polish to kind of give it, you know, a really smooth finish. All right, that looks pretty even. So I went ahead and polished the levers. And usually if you set the handlebar on a flat surface and then put the levers on, they should touch like that on both sides. And if you do that, you're gonna have a really straight bar. And that's about where they should go, right at the where that curve is. I'll go ahead and tighten them up. I'll also clean the dual position levers, make sure they are hanging straight, because that will also determine how I might position them. So we'll see how that goes. And there's the cables. I went ahead and hit them with some of the greaser. Let them soak for a couple hours. And then I wiped them down. And they don't look too bad at all. So we got the dual position levers on now, and they're hanging pretty straight. So I'll go ahead and tighten everything. Then I'll take them off again so I can go ahead and put the tape on it. So I've done several videos where I do the tape. I'll just show you how I get started. So basically I measure out 2 inches from the stem on both sides. This is black electrical tape. I use a little piece. And that's basically to secure the initial loop on both sides. Then the tape is right here. This is that Sierra Brown translucent tape that looks so cool once it's on the chrome. That's why it was important to clean the chrome really nice, not have any residue on it, because that definitely make a difference. So this is 5 yards, and I'm gonna cut it in half, so it'd be 2.5 per side, and there should be plenty of room. Here's what this one looks like after I got done with it, and this is exactly the same tape, as you can see. And it was 2.5 yards, and it came out perfectly from one end to the other. So let's go ahead and get that done. So this is how I get started. So basically this right here, I put like 1 inch strip to create this look. So that trims it out really nice. And then over here, I started out with the tape on the bottom, and then I loop it this way. So you want to make sure that it's nice and straight, parallel to that. And then the first loop goes all the way underneath it. And as soon as you come around, you pull away about that much right there. So what's going to happen is you're eventually going to get to 1/3 of the tape only covering And again, every turn you got to make it really slow. You start turning it, you want to continue to have the consistency in every turn. Right now I'm about half. So initially you're going to start out with more than a third. And right about the fourth loop, then you can start pulling away to 1/3. And you can always go back and start over again because this doesn't have adhesive on it. And then when I get here, you saw what's going to happen there. So let me go ahead and get this done. All right, so I do want to show you this part right here. This is where you do the around the lever. If you notice, it's a lot easier to do this without the dual position lever on there. So if you notice, I'm coming around like this, and then you go around back like that. And then back this way. All right, that side is done. And I forgot to mention that I actually use these little rubber bands to keep that brake lever from coming down. That way it stays there, you can work around it better. But when you're putting this on, always check to see that there's no open chrome, because sometimes you'll get all the way to the end and then realize you had a spot that you didn't notice. So always double check your wrap as you're going. All right, and the handlebars are all done, so we'll go ahead and mount them on the bike. Those levers look good. There's that bolt, put that in there, and then we'll go ahead and secure it to the frame. That wedge that goes in, so that way it doesn't get seized in there. And if you notice that little slot, there's like a little peg that goes in there, so it can stay in place when you're spinning it. So that's pretty cool. And that's about where I like them. I like it so the little S's stick out on top of the handlebar, and also when you're shifting, you can easily grab them. So if you put it too high, they'd be hiding it. Too low is just too low. So I like that like that. I'm gonna clean off that grease off of it here in a second. But that's how it should be, right there. All right, we'll start a look at the bike. Last thing is the wheels and cables, and it should be rolling. So I recommend getting one of these if you don't have one already. These things will definitely save your bike from getting banged up by the handlebar. Because once you put that on, this thing swings all over. All right, here's the wheels. So remember I was showing you this rest spot right there? So as you can see how the rim looks, it's got rust, you know, a lot of patina. So this is typical. And this can clean up pretty good. Now if it's got any, you know, really bad pitting on the chrome, that will not come off. However, you can minimize, you know, how it looks, and it'll still look really shiny and nice. So I'm just gonna do a really small piece just to show you how some of the stuff I use works pretty good. So I've been using this new stuff right here. It's a little quicker, it's a 30-minute. You can leave it longer if you want. This one right here takes a little bit longer, but I think it's a better product than that one. So I use that in case this one doesn't do it. It seems to really, you know, get it. And then the trusty Evaporust, it's really more, you know, again, to dip stuff. So I use it really to wipe down stuff, you know, so I use it all the time. And then the polish, semi-chrome, best stuff out there. And check it out, I'm getting really low on grease. I think I have just enough to do the hubs. I'm sure I do. So, and I got another tub coming, but I don't think I'll get it till next week, so we'll see. But so we're gonna go ahead and overhaul the bearings and then clean all the rims and everything. All right, so just real quick, I wanna show you, before I put any of my products on it, this rust right there should scrape right off. So I take a razor blade like this and just carefully rub on it. You need to make sure that you don't scratch the chrome. So when you hit it, when it's dry like this, it just kind of flakes right off. Then you just take off, you know. I don't have anything holding this tire, so I can't put a lot of pressure on here. Then a little bit of this. All right, so let me put this down so I can actually put a little bit of pressure on here. So as you can see how Alright, so that took off most of it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the little steel wool on it, and then I'll show you how it looks. Because I need to hold on to the tire to be able to do it with any kind of pressure. Right, so I went ahead and used the steel wool, and then I went ahead and put some of that semi-chrome paste on it. And I'm going to go ahead and shine it up. And it actually already looked good before I put the paste on it. But I wanted to go ahead and just give it a little bit of an example of how it looks with doing the steps. And I haven't used any rust agents yet. Alright, and that's what it looks like. So you can go from that that's an S6 rim. This chrome's really good. You can see how it looks, and you saw what the spot I was working on. You can see that all the rust is gone. And when I actually do these, I do everything that I just did, except I do you know, put a little bit of rust remover, you know, so it gets inside there. And when I usually true the wheels, I'll of course take off the tires, and then I, you know, remove the nipples and get in there really good. But as you can see, it didn't take that long to get, you know, these 4 spaces cleaned up, and it looks awesome. So I'm really excited that these rims are going to clean up well. And I actually did the worst spot on it. Then I'll do the hubs, and this thing's going to be humming. Alright, so I went ahead and got the entire wheel wiped down and got all the rust off of it, as you can see. So it came out pretty good. I still have to give it, you know, one last polishing once I because I like to clean it up, and then, you know, do the sides. Still have to do those. But I wanted to get the top part done. And it looks like most of that rust came off. So just a matter of you know, giving it that last polishing and doing the sides as well. But I'll do that when I take off the tires. Next is the hub. Went ahead and got all the grease off of it. I kind of got the truing stand backwards so I can actually use it as a cleaning stand. But if you notice, this thing's spinning pretty true. So we'll see. But I will definitely polish the hub, get it shining. And then I'll show you one of my techniques that I use to polish the rims once I get them clean. And for the final touch, you know, I give it a little polishing that really, I think, makes a big difference the way that they come out. So I'll show you that in a second. So to get the final polishing, I actually put a little bit of the polish on at least 4 of the spaces and spray around a little bit. And then I just take a cloth that I've been using previously on it, just to, you know, get it all over the little areas there. And then to get that high luster, I'll go ahead and take a, you know, a pretty fresh one, a pretty clean towel. Then I usually do kind of like a shoe polish, you know, hold the tire with my shoulder, and then you just really go for it. And what that does, it just brings out, it's almost like using a, you know, you do the outsides like this. But if you notice how all of a sudden it's got a really, really, really shiny look right there to that. So I think it seems to work better than just trying to, you know, do this with it like this. Because you can do that all day long, but if you get on here like this and you just hold it like this, and then you just really go for it, see, it's like a shoe polish, and then you just clean off the edges, but that's how you get that really high luster. There's the hub. Came out pretty good. And I did the same technique there around the middle there, did the shoe polish technique. In this case, I actually wrapped it around so it did the complete circle, and it works out because you do the whole thing. So that's what you do if you don't, you know, relace your wheels and have the hub to polish by itself conveniently. But came out pretty good, you know, so there's no scars, no major scratches, and it looks pretty good. So although it's spinning pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and overhaul the bearings on there and make sure that it's, you know, got some fresh grease on it. Alright, so I got the hub clean. Now tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and take off the Freewheel and polish that spoke protector. And then I'll also go ahead and overhaul the bearings. But the chrome cleaned up nice on this one as well. So on this one I used a little bit of that razor blade, but I used mainly the steel wool. And then I just polished it. I didn't use any rust remover at all. And I did go ahead and take a little pad here like this. Went ahead and went over the spokes. And then tomorrow I'm going to polish them to get them to gleam a little bit more. So I just wanted to get the grime, a little bit of rust on them, but mainly it's just dirt. So today we're going to go ahead and take off the Freewheel and clean the back of this really good. Overhaul the bearings and get this rear wheel rolling. So this is a tool you can get on eBay or on Amazon. It's the FR4, and basically it's a Freewheel remover that goes right into this splines right there, and it fits right in. And these can be pretty tight from years of not being serviced or just from, you know. So it's best to actually hold it on the floor to get some leverage. So imagine this being on the floor, and then you got more leverage, and you can just crank it and get, you know, a good crank like that. So I did that earlier, and now I can go ahead and set it here and continue to move this. So once you loosen it, it comes out pretty easy. And the best part is that you can actually take it right off, clean this inside out, and then get to the back of this thing, because these things get pretty grimy. This one looks pretty good. There's not much rust. This will come off. This will clean real nice, and it'll definitely look great. Now you have full access to the hub. All right, well, I took all the grease off of it with some paint thinner. Then I used a little Windex just to wipe off that residue from the paint thinner and dried it. And now I'm doing my semi-chrome polish on it just to get the fingerprints off of it. And it should come out pretty good. So again, this chrome sometimes can get pretty pitted back here because that's where a lot of water splashes on it. And if the bike never gets serviced or cleaned, they're gonna get, you know, pretty damaged. I've taken off a few that couldn't be used because they were so pitted. So these are definitely very nice to have in good shape. I'll show you some that I've taken off that were too damaged to use again, unless you re-chromed them. So I'll show you those in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and get this knocked out, and I'll show it to you when it's done. All right, so here it is. So this really cleaned up very nicely. And see front and back, so that's going to look great behind those spokes. So that'll go back on there. And here's the ones I told you that I had that were really damaged. Look at this one. This one came off a crate rim, and see the back, pretty pitted. So this one really can't be used. I mean, it can, but not for a restoration. You could just put it in a beater. But it looks like a chain got caught back there because it's pretty beat up back there. I'm not sure what happened there, but that's pretty bad damage. This one here wasn't too bad. The front looks good, but when you flip it over, it's got tons of, feel that back there. So this is the one that was on my 71 Varsity, and I put a brand new one on that one. So this one here is definitely one that could be re-chromed because it's pretty straight. And the front really could polish up nicely, but that back is just too bad for it to put on the bike. So. All right, so now the Freewheel, what I actually do is put a little bit of paint thinner on a pan like that, so I can actually soak it while I'm brushing it. And I did use some of the greaser on it for this right here. It actually worked pretty good. Power cleaner in the greaser. And then once I got the initial gunk off of it, then I used some of this to kind of just get all the little dirt and grease on here. All right, we got the Freewheel clean. Here's that. And the hub cleaned up well. Went ahead and again used the scouring pad on the spokes, and then I'll go ahead and polish them a little bit once I get everything greased. So So next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and take this off and put some new grease on it. So it's a cone wrench size 16, and that goes on the bottom nut there, and then you get this one here like this. And I pre-loosened it, but you loosen it like this so you go opposite way. And then once you take that off, you should be able to just take it off with your hand, and you want to hang on to this one in the back here. And then you undo the cone all the way out. And then I put these in a little jar of paint thinner, let them start soaking. And then you can go ahead and take out the axle, and there goes the bearings. So typically they stay in there because they have the covers on them still, but there's hardly any grease in there, so they're just coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, over this little bucket here, and there they come. So that's it. And then I'll go ahead and, yep, that's that sticky grease, you can feel it. And then we'll go ahead and take off the covers. And you want to make sure you don't damage these. So you want to put in, you know, I like to use a wider screwdriver so it covers a little bit more of the, and that one actually came out pretty easy, but I actually tried to do more than one place, and it came right out. And there's your bearings right there. And yep, that's definitely that sticky grease that Schwinn put in there. Here's a little closer look at it. So as you can see, it still had some grease in it, but the top of the bearings were pretty much dry. There was nothing on them, so it was enough grease to keep it moving, but I could hear a little bit of grit in there. So I'll clean that out and put some fresh grease in there. All right, so we got 18 bearings, 9 per side. Here's a brand new bag. Went ahead and cleaned out the races. I did use a little bit of steel wool to smooth them out, and then I polished them a little bit, and they're ready to go. So we'll go ahead and get some fresh grease in there after we clean this off and get it ready to install. All right, so I got the axle and the other cone sitting in a little bit of rust remover. The threads had a little bit of rust. I'm actually going through and just making sure that, because this area is not going to be same, so, and it'll be hard to get to again. So I'm going to go ahead and, this is that little scouring pad that does awesome on these spoke. In some cases there might be a little corrosion, and you can actually use a little rust remover on that, or replace the spoke if you want. And you can see that whole wheel is not coming together. And then once I actually put it on, I'll give it one last polish, especially around the bottom here. This goes on here. It's gonna look pretty awesome. And then of course this thing's super clean already as well, so that'll go on there. And that'll look pretty awesome as well. So it's coming together. Again, it's a lot of little tedious work, but the payoff is just a really pristine looking bike once you're done with it. And then I'll go ahead and put some grease in here. Check it out. I got my new tub, but I was glad to get that yesterday, so that's pretty cool. All right, and I got the bearings in, nicely packed. I will put another layer on top of that, and then I'll go ahead and put this on it. And then I can flip it over and put the axle in there. All right, and then just make sure that you put your cover on evenly. Once I put it in, I just tap it down, make sure it's even all the way around. And now we can flip it over. Same thing on the other side, on the drive side. Went ahead and got a nice thick coat. And then I'll put one more layer on top to hold them down. And then I'll put the cover on. All right, so I put the axle through. I went ahead and put the cone on it, and tighten it basically all the way to the bearings, and then you can kind of spin it and get a feel for it. It doesn't feel bad, but I can tell that without even putting the lock nut on it. I'm going to back it off just a bit, and that's much better right there. And usually if you hold it with your hands, you can actually feel the friction on your fingers, and that right there feels really good. So now I'm going to go ahead and put on the key washer. It's got a little slot on it, so it should go right in there like that, just like your headset. And then your lock nut. And then you can just kind of tighten it, Okay, about there just to get a feel for it again. Still feels good. All right, and now you can go ahead and tighten it the same way. And you'll loosen it. The size 16 down here. There we go. And this one over here. And this time you're going to actually bring them together like this. So it's counter tightened. So we make it pretty tight. And let's see what it does. Feels good so far? That feels really good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do a final wipe, make sure everything's good on it. Again, this will not be seen once you put the spoke protector on there. And go ahead and bring this guy over. It looks good in the back. Because again, once you put it on, you have to clean between the spokes. And that's never a good thing. So this you can wipe down later. So before we put this on, we're going to go ahead and grease it a little bit. You can just do it right on here. There we go. And then this just goes clockwise. And it goes right on there. Go ahead and get to the bottom. Should be good to go. And now we're going to tighten it just a little bit. So again, this fits right inside here. And whenever you pedal, see how it goes this way? And then when you go this way, that's when you pedal. This actually happens every time you go forward. And that also tightens the freewheel just naturally. So, you know, just get it tight enough, but you don't have to worry about being a terrible tight. Just about, you know, like that's good. Just, that's about good right there. And that's it. Take off your tool. Again, FR4 park tool. And this thing is ready. You just gotta wipe it down. It's pretty true. So it's going to be just basically going through the spokes, making sure they're all, you know, at the same tension. I felt a few loose ones when I was cleaning it, so I'll get those cleaned up or tightened up, and then we'll go ahead and, you know, get that new tire on it. All right, so I went ahead and took off the tires and rim strips and found a little bit of rust down there. Scraped off most of it, and I just put a coat of my rust dissolver, the Loctite stuff. I'm gonna let it sit overnight. Here's the front one. I went ahead and took this one off too. And you can see the rust around the perimeter. It's not too bad. It had a lot of tire that got stuck on there, and I just scraped that off. But I'll go ahead and put this stuff on. I'll just brush it on there and let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow I'll go ahead and get them trued up and then re-clean them, because I know you get your hands all over these things when you're playing with them. But that's okay. I like to clean them first thoroughly, so that way when I go back to repolish them, you know, it's just basically just wiping them down instead of having to, you know, polish them. All right, Saturday, late morning. It already feels like about 95 out here. Super humid. So I've been working indoors with my garage door closed and the AC on, but today I'm gonna go ahead and do some work with the door open. I actually have a neighbor that's gonna stop by. I'm gonna check out his bike. Sounds like he's having a problem with his bottom bracket, making a little bit of noise. So anyway, I went ahead and got the rust off of it. And this is the other product that I started to use recently. Quick Glow. A lot of people really love this stuff. It's a chrome cleaner and rust remover. And it's got kind of a gritty feel to it. So when you put it between your fingers, you'll feel like a little gritty, sandy type of feel. And I believe that's the particles that actually get into the, you know, deep cleaning and removing some of the rust. However, it doesn't quite shine as well as the semi-chrome does. So when I got it, I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't shining any better than, you know, than what I can do with my semi-chrome. But it's actually become a second tool to be able to do this, like the inside of the rims. So I coated them with it. I'm just gonna clean it off right now, just to get that, you know, residue off from the rust remover. But it should be good to go. Next thing I'm gonna do is is go ahead and remove the axle there and redo those bearings, and then that's it. Then we'll kind of give them a little polish, true them, get the wheels on them, and then get them on the bike. The bike's sitting here waiting for wheels. And then last thing is, all those cables are waiting there. I already got the inner wire, so it's just a matter of getting that through. These are already pre-cut since they're originals, so we should be on our way. Alright, so now after I did all the cleaning, I do one final buffing using the semi-chrome. I already put it on there and rubbed off most of the, so now he's going to go ahead and do the shoe polish trick. See, I'm right here right now. And this is the last time that you really be able to do this, because once you put that gum wall on, you really can't do this because you'll get that tire dirty. So again, it's just going back over, getting these parts real good. That way you can get that high luster on here. And of course you can still, do some fine tuning once you get the tire on by using your hand like this. So after this, I'm going to true it and then put the tire on. Alright, it's fitting pretty true. That's pretty close to the rim there, so that's not too bad. So that's about as good as it can get. So not bad at all, but it's spinning pretty true and definitely spinning pretty round as well. So that'll work. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get this packed. The axle should be ready to go. Polished and no grime, no scars, no pitting. Alright, let's go ahead and put some grease in it, get the bearings, put the axle through there. Alright, the front one's done too. Went ahead and tightened the cones and lock nut, and it's spinning really good. Alright, and the front rim is done. There it is, spinning pretty true, spinning pretty round, and spinning really good as well. So we'll have to get these done. Now he's got to mount the gum walls on them and get it on the bike, and then we'll do the cables. So almost done. All right, so then we got the bead on both sides now. You just make sure that it's seated properly and that this is nice and straight, so you can tighten it down to secure where it should go. And then he's going to put a little bit of air in it now. There we go. I'm just going to put about 20 pounds in it at first. There we go. Take that out. And then go ahead and make sure she's sitting good. So far so good. And then just make sure it's seated properly all the way through. I like to push down on it. Alright, I went ahead and put 40 pounds now and kind of kept playing with it. So it should look pretty good. So we'll go ahead and get this on the bike. Alright, we got the back one on. And again, this derailleur originally was not doing this. And what happened was they had this too tight, and even if you untighten the back bolt, it would still, tighten up on you. So that needs to be loosened, and then it gives it a chance to swivel, because that's important for it to do when it's shifting from the lowest to the highest gear. All right, here's the front one. Went ahead and put the rim strip on, make sure it was even throughout the whole center part. Get your Kenda tire out. And then look for your valve, which is right here. And this is going to be the drive side. Get the Kenda tube out. So you want to do is put this on top of the rim like this. And let's find that. There it is. So take this off all the way. All right, so that goes in there, and then secure it. Make sure that's nice and tight, and then you just leave this on top of the rim. because you really can't do anything with it because it doesn't really fit at this point. It's a little long. Even though it's the right size, they make them a little bit long. Alright, and then you go ahead and start putting your bead in there on one side. First thing is line this up with your valve, right about there. And then you just begin to mount that. And it goes on pretty easy. Alright, so there's one side. You can center this like this. Make sure that that's perfectly centered. And now you can go ahead and start tucking your tire in. You just make sure that it's laying flat and it's not twisted. And again, no air in it at all. Easiest way to really deal with it. So there's going to be a little bit extra slack, but eventually you'll all get tucked in there. Alrighty, so we're good to go. Make sure it's nice and tucked away in there. Alright, and then I always like to start at the valve and work my way around. And these usually go right in without any other tools. Sometimes they get a little bit stubborn, but for the most part they should just go right in. Alright, and that's it. It's still nice and centered. You can still move it a little bit. And then just make sure that it's seated in there on both sides, that there's no tube sticking out. Alright, then put some air in it. Alright, well, the front one's on too. So it looks like we finally got a pipe. Alright, so I'm gonna have some dinner and then finish out the cables. So having these already pre-cut should definitely make it a lot quicker. Alright, I went through and cleaned all the cable housing and I installed it just to make sure everything is going to be there. So this is a little loop that goes to the rear derailleur. That's really in good condition. This thing had this adjuster all the way up, which made it a little too short of a space. So I did cut off just a little bit of the cable, because it was kind of sticking up way high. And now when this actually gets the cable, it'll come like this. So that's how it should be. Those are just kind of in their lodge, so they're not exactly where they're gonna land because they're just stuck in there. So, but they should be, the loop will come up about like that. And again, I mentioned this before, on Continentals, because they have the center pull brakes, this cable goes around back and drops into that hanger right there, and then the line drops right into this brake caliper. These are the two for the derailleurs, front and back. These are in pretty good shape. So again, these will go in here like this. And then these right here, a little loop that goes from the cable stop to the front derailleur, and then the little short one that goes right at the bottom bracket. And that's it. Those are all the cables. Right, so the first cable is on, looped around to the back, drop right into that hanger. And then I went ahead and put the squeeze on the brakes like that and put it right on the rim. And then I put this on there, went ahead and getting ready to tighten it up. And then once I let go of that clamp, it's gonna open up a little bit and it's gonna give me just enough clearance, and this will be really tight up here. Also, I lubed the cable right in that area there, and that'll definitely make those brakes function properly. Brakes are on to the front. Got it all tied up. End cap on it. And that's why I like them. I like them very close to the rim for that short travel, and that works awesome. But yeah, that lubrication in the cable makes it really respond great, as well as these. So, all right, let's do the rear. All right, got the rear brakes on. Yep, working. All right, cables are on. And those original cables came out really straight. All right, and the last thing is putting the derailleur inner wire front and back. On this particular bike, I'm using 65 on both, and it should work out. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out and see if it can go in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the inner wire. And these old vintage Schwinn inner wires have the smaller pancake head, as you see right here. And the reason why I get those is because it's very slim opening right there. So if you get anything bigger than that or the barrel, they won't fit. So that'll slide right in. So once you lube your cable or lube your inner wire, you slip that right in there. So there's that pancake head tucked in to that slot, and then it comes through here. I went ahead and lubed the inner wire and come through that cable stop, and then through this cable stop, and then the bottom bracket inner cable, and then it comes through here, cable stop, and then that short little loop into the derailleur, and then it goes through here. So now when you tighten this, you want to make sure that you start with the lever at the highest position right next to the handlebar, and that usually means that you're going to be in your lowest gear. So I'll go ahead and pull it so it's just as tight as a guitar string. Right now it's loose, there's not tension at all, but I'm going to pull it so it's almost like a E string on a bass, and it should definitely give it the correct tension. So when you start moving up the cluster, it should shift nicely. So let's go ahead and this tool here is awesome to be able to pull this as tight as you want it and hold it down, so that way you can actually maneuver your tool to tighten it. And I already did, so I'm going to go ahead and loosen it and see how it shifts. So we're good. All right, cool. So next we'll go ahead and do the derailleur on the front. Both cables are on now. We'll go ahead and test out front and rear derailleurs together, and we should be good to go. Definitely takes them through all the gears. Alright, go to the front end. There we go. I need to adjust this limiting screw, let it come up a little bit further. There you go. It's Friday after work. It's about 7 o'clock. It's going to get dark pretty soon. I think she's done. So I'm just going to take it outside and see if I can take some shots before it gets too dark out there. And probably won't ride it until tomorrow. Thought I'd take a few shots before it gets dark out. It's almost 8 o'clock and still a little bit of daylight out, so we'll go ahead and see if we can get some good shots of the bike. So again, the bike, it's a 1972 Schwinn Continental Sierra Brown. It was produced in the second month of the year, so it still had some of the things that you saw in the 71s. Some of the things to know about this particular year, Continental, it's got this combination of the gold dot and the red quick release, which was done on a few Continentals in 1972, as well as the Dia-Comp center pull brakes and the GT150 Shimano derailleur. And from what I understand, there was a part shortage in 1972 because of the bike boom, and they couldn't keep up with demand. So they ran out of the typical GT250 that goes on here, which is Schwinn approved derailleur that's a little nicer, made in France. So this is a pretty simple derailleur. But I kept it on there because of the history of the part shortage. So it's significant to how this bike came out. But I'm glad they were able to put the period correct embossed saddle, because I think it's super cool. It's got the spring support on it and all that cleaned up nicely. But this is all original paint. I just waxed it, and it's got some little dings here and there, but you know, they aren't that noticeable after waxing it. So I got this bike local here from the original owner, and I was happy to get it so I could go ahead and preserve it. So I got the original outer cables. Came out really good. I just cleaned them up a little bit, as well as the shifter cables all throughout. So cleaned up nice, and I was able to find again another roll of this Sierra Brown translucent tape that really makes the bike complete. So in the morning or in the evening, I'm going to take it out for a spin and see how she rides. All the gears are shifting pretty good, so it should be alright. Saturday afternoon. Woke up this morning and it was kind of cloudy, and then it got really sunny. So I decided to go ahead and do some stuff in the house and start editing some of the video parts I have already. And then as soon as I had breakfast, it started raining like crazy. So now I'm gonna go do my bike ride just yet. Maybe I should have just done it in the morning when I had a chance, but hopefully it'll clear up by tonight. Maybe I can get out. All right, so we'll go ahead and take her out for a spin. I took it out a second ago just to make sure everything was good, because I'm gonna be riding one-handed. It's a little harder. But I tightened a few things that I noticed were a little bit loose, so we're good to go now. Let's go ahead and take off. So let's take a quick long ride right here, get some good footage of this cruiser. There we go. I probably got some pretty good footage. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it around. It's pretty solid, no rattles. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day and get back over here. All right, back at the shop. All right, well, she definitely riding smooth as I thought she would. So she's ready to go. So I'll take her around back, take some final shots, and finish out the video. Very happy with the results. She's cleaned up well, and now it's a really great rider. I'm really happy with it. You guys seen this one before on another video I did recently. And this is a 1971, exact same color. And again, these two models were very similar. This one was the entry-level road bike, and the Continental was the next step up. So it was a few more dollars and a couple of pounds lighter. And here's the reason why. So the Varsity had the steel handlebars. It's pretty straightforward. Continental had the alloy made in England bars and alloy stem. That lightened it up a little bit. Continental had the center pole brakes. Varsity had the side pole brakes. Varsity had the steel blade forks, if you noticed, and it's got that arrow decal on it. The Continental had the tubular forks with that chrome molding on the top, which looks really cool, and the star logo. Also, Continental had the quick release hubs. The Varsity just had the standard bolts. So 71, Varsity had the pedals like this, as the rat trap pedals. Didn't have any reflectors on them, which was what they did. And see, and this one has that 71 through 72 derailleur on it, as well as the back. So this one actually got the correct derailleur. This one's got the add-on 440 pedals, which are really cool. So these are actually, you can service them, take the cap off, redo the bearings on them. And then one's got that GT150 derailleur that I talked about earlier because of the part shortage in 1972 due to the bike boom. But it does have the correct rear derailleur. They got the exact same gear in the back, same spoke protector, same S6 rims, same reflector. And I believe that this bike should have this saddle too, which I want to look for. I'm going to get one of those. Again, I put this one on here because it was comfortable, but I'm going to go ahead and put that saddle because it looks so cool with the, and I talked about this already, the decal right in the middle of that C2, just like that one there. So 71, 72 were very similar. Again, two bikes, Varsity and Continental. Some slight differences, but very similar. All right, guys, let's take it around back, and we'll go ahead and finish out the video. All right, so like all the bikes, I do the last shots right here in the back area. So she came out pretty sweet. Really happy with it. And I do want to thank you guys for watching this long video, but I wanted to put out a video that basically went through the whole process from getting the bike to, you know, doing a evaluation of the work done, giving you, you know, how much it would cost to do it based on parts used. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for watching.